So after building the cafe racer, the electric cafe racer, I decided to do something a little bit more of a crotch rocket style, something that wasn't too expensive. I found this online. They ship it directly to your house. It was a 125cc motor. I think you're paying about $2,000 for the frame, $100 for the motor. The motor in this thing was, it weighed maybe 15, it was tiny. Tiny, tiny. I never even turned it over. When I bought this motorcycle, I had plans to pull the motor out immediately and go straight to electric. They crated it to your house. It took maybe a week to get here once you paid for it. They sent you the title. It's Venom Motorsports, if you can't see them. Like I said, they did very well, very quick shipping. Like I said, here's the motor. If you can tell, that's a drill next to it. It was very tiny. I can't imagine this thing having much speed, torque, the way it sat, but neither here nor there. Like I said, my whole plan was to pull this motor immediately. So I started to disassemble it, take everything apart, get measurements, figure out exactly what battery specs I needed. I wanted to stick with that 72 volt. I felt comfortable with it. Originally, I was going to build this for my wife. Like I said, she liked the e-bike, but going 40 miles an hour is a little shaky, so she wanted something a little bigger. So I went with the QS138 motor originally. Mocked all that up, put it in there. She wasn't a fan of it as far as it was a lot bigger. The bike was built more like a 600 style frame versus a 250 or a 125. Much bigger, but I went ahead and built it anyway. I think it was only a 45 amp hour battery. I did a small battery, small motor, didn't take too much. I think it was 150, 200 line amps, what I was giving it. It was like a big scooter. It wasn't much torque, not a lot of speed. It did better than I thought it would with the speed, but here you can tell I'm making my mounts. I really had to rig that top mount on there, but it didn't move. That motor was locked in there pretty well. After this, you can tell on the battery with the grease that I've rode it a couple times. Here's my first test ride of it once I got it pretty much put together. What I did like the most about this bike is it was pretty silent. It was a speed test. This is pretty much touch 70, 75 on a good day, but there wasn't much to it. So once I realized that my wife wasn't so much interested, she really liked the e-bike, that's better than the full-blown motorcycle. In my fashion, of course, I stripped it back down, got a bigger motor, bigger battery, bigger controller. I put a QS180 in it. I was giving it 420 line amps. Big difference. Night and day difference. Like I said again, Amorage custom built my battery. They do a phenomenal job. They get it down to the millimeter. There's another video I did on the e-bike and you can tell me putting the battery in it, it's just down to the millimeter how their measurements are. This motor I obviously mounted a little bit harder because I knew that it was a lot more torque, a lot more power. I wanted to make sure that motor wasn't going anywhere. Here's just a little rundown. This is pretty much once I was a lot more torque than that QS138. I still had to put everything back together, but here it is once I got the motor in there. I painted the mounts. Such a fun bike to ride. Such a fun bike to ride. The range wasn't as much as the 138, but then again, I was giving it 420 line amps. This is the complete bike. I did a little decal, took the Venom Motorsports off. I really enjoyed this bike. It was a blast to ride. It was so smooth. Everything was new on it, so the shocks and all that, it was such a buttery smooth ride. I was able to use the original ignition. I just wired that to the controller, which was an ND72 1800, I believe. Don't quote me on that, but I want to say that's what it was. I know I went with a bigger controller, but like I said, this bike was so much fun to use. Long story short, kind of spoiler here, I ended up taking the motor out of this and put it in a go-kart that I built. My plan is in the near future I would like to put a 12K hub motor on there, a 96 volt. I'm not sure it'll be much faster, but it should make a difference as far as range. I have more room for battery. If you have any questions, let me know.